My blissful selves. Today, let us know in brief about fear. So there is fear for all living beings. What is the cause of this fear? The cause of this fear is the understanding that the body and the sensory objects are givers of bliss. But if we inquire rightly, we will come to know that there is no iota of bliss in the body and in the sensory objects. When there is body consciousness, there is hunger, there is thirst, there is cold, bright sunlight, and sultriness, and there is insult, disease, old age, and desire of sensory objects. And there is the fear of death. That means the body is not the giver of happiness, but it is the giver of unhappiness. And if we inquire whether there is happiness in the sensory objects. So when there is passion for sensory objects, there would be likes and dislikes. When we think that the particular sensory object is giving happiness to us, so we desire that. And when we desire the sensory object, our mind becomes agitated and unhappiness is experienced. That means we will have the desire of that sensory object. That means there will be liking of those sensory objects. And if anybody will be an obstacle for getting that sensory object, so there will be disliking for that particular person. So in this way, when there will be passion for sensory objects, there will be likes and dislikes. And these cause fear. So if that is the case, when there is passion for sensory objects, so all 6 enemies will be there. Kama, desire. When there is desire, there is unhappiness. Krodha, anger will be there. Then infatuation, moha will be there. The greed, lobha will be there. And we become egoistic. Ahankara will be there. And jealousy. If anybody would be enjoying sensory objects more than us, we will be jealous about that person. So in this way, when there is passion for sensory objects, so there will be these 6 enemies. That means the sensory objects are givers of unhappiness. But when we know firmly that the body and the sensory objects are the givers of unhappiness, and the bliss is in the Atman, So there is no fear at all. The bliss is in the Atman. The adjuncts may be different. For example, when we get a desired object, our mind becomes calm. And in this calm mind, the bliss of our Atman only is reflected and experienced. Then in the deep sleep, we experience happiness. So in the deep sleep, the body consciousness and the passion for sensory objects, so these have been subsided and the mind becomes calm. And in that calm mind, the bliss of our Atman is only reflected and experienced. Then there are drinkers, they drink the alcohol. And when they drink the alcohol, so the mind becomes calm. And in that calm mind, the bliss of the Atman is reflected and experienced. During the practice of pranayama, so the air has been controlled. And when the air has been controlled, the mind becomes calm. And when the mind becomes calm, the bliss of our Atman only is reflected and experienced. And then from morning till evening, we will be engaged in many activities. And there results the tiresomeness and weariness. And we will be in a position to yawn like that. Like that. Then the mind becomes calm. And the bliss of our Atman has been reflected and experienced. Then sometimes, so there will be fainting. During fainting also, the mind becomes calm. And the bliss of the Atman is reflected and experienced. So the adjuncts are different, but the experience of happiness is only of ourself or the Atman. That means the happiness is in the Atman. And there is no happiness in the enjoyment of sensory objects and the body consciousness. So Raja Bhartrihari explains in his Vairagya Shataka, Bhoge Roga Bhaya. When we enjoy the sensory objects, so there is the fear of disease. And again he explains, in Kula also there is a fear. There is fear of spoiling the Kula with a Nrupaladbhaya. When there is much more property, so there is the fear of kings. There is the fear of relatives. And there is the fear of thieves. There is the fear of fire. There is the fear of water, like that. Then Raja Bhartrihari says, Mane Dainya Bhaya. That means there are many persons and they are honorable. That means if there is honor, there is the fear of losing it, so that they can defeat him. Gune khalabhayam. To a virtuous man, there is the fear of wicked man. Kaye krutantad bhayam. If there is body, there is the fear of God of death. Sarvam vastu bhayanvitam bhuvinunam vairagyameva bhayam. King Bhartrhari explains, in dispassion, there is no fear at all. All objects cause fear, but this vairagya, this dispassion, doesn't cause any fear. So in dispassion, there is no fear at all. And if there is the understanding that the words, the touch, the beauty, the taste, and the smell are givers of bliss, there is fear. Some people give up the sensory objects, but by this, the fear has not been removed. So if the desire of sensory objects is removed, then there is no fear. In the mundane waking, so there is the fear of death, so that the others can kill us. When there is duality, there is the fear. But there is no fear at all in non-duality. In deep sleep, there is no fear because there is no duality. The objects of waking state are false because the waking state is false, like the dream. And the objects that are present in the waking state are false and imaginary, like a dream. They don't exist at all. If we have this understanding that the objects that have been present in the waking state are false and imaginary, then there is no fear at all of any objects. If we inquire, we are not this gross body. We are the self, because I know the body. So I am different from the body. I know the organs of action. I know the organs of knowledge. I know the prana. I know the vayu. I know the mind. I know the intellect. I know the chitta, the knowing entity. I know the egoism, the ahankara. So I am not all these. I am different from all these. So I know my childhood. I know the youth. I know the old age. So I am different from all these. I know the waking state. I know the dream state. I know the deep sleep state. So I am different from all these. Then I know all the lives, all the janmas. So I am different from all these. So I know all these, but all these cannot know me. So I am the knower of all these. I am the self. I only exist. But all these are false and imaginary. So in this way, if we think like that, so there is no fear at all. And the fear can be completely removed when we attain self-knowledge. The fear causes many miseries. If there is a fear, the luster of the face will be lost. And there will be increase in the heartbeat. This causes the heart attack and lastly the heart failure. So when there is a fear, there is sweating. The hands and legs begin to tremble. The pulse begins to beat very slowly. Sometimes it completely stops. If there is increase in fear, the respiration continues forcefully. Sometimes the respiration completely stops. And if there is much more fear, our eyes become blind. And the urine and feces leave the body without our consciousness. By maximum fear, the consciousness will be lost. By fear, the organs of actions and the organs of knowledge don't carry their functions. The maximum fear results in death. And there will be no fear at all if we think that we are all one. And there will be no fear at all. So by this, I end my talk.